Hi there, this is part of a set of shorter videos I'm splitting off from my main hour-long breakdown of the recent pair of House of the Dragon Season 2 teaser trailers. This one focused on Jace Velaryon and his trip north, meeting the prequel Starks and prequel Arryns. Because some questions were raised by the teaser trailers about just how much screen time are these great houses actually getting, and in which episodes. Originally, I was freaking out, but now I feel better, and thinking it through, I believe this is what they're doing that could still hold up, if they do it, but it's not instantly automatically bad. That just, okay, they're moving it around a little, but I see why they would do that. This might actually work out for the better. Because it's not something from the teaser itself, but from the accompanying promo photos. The still shot promo photos. One of those very clearly showed Jace on Dragonstone, present for his brother Luke's funeral. And at the time, the day the teasers came out, I didn't think much of it, because there was a rumor circulating on Twitter that, this is like the end of episode 3, and I thought, that's fine. That's almost half season in an 8-episode season. Since then, in the past few days, the reliable spy channels have insisted and doubled down on, we can confirm, this is from the end of episode 1. So you see, that raises all sorts of questions about, are they cutting most of Jace's journey? Is it going to be crammed into episode 1? Will it be flashbacks throughout the season? What exactly are they doing here? Because initially we thought they were expanding it. I mean, the big thing a lot of people noticed was, in this one more than the first teaser, a clear shot of we will see the Wall and the Night's Watch again, that you see Jace with Cregan. That wasn't even in the source material in the novel. He goes to Winterfell, but not the Wall. We're actually pretty excited about this. We have leaks the White Walkers will make an appearance again. There will be flashbacks to Jaehaerys we've heard about, but separate from this, related to it. And now suddenly it's, he's back by the end of episode 1, what's going on? So I've seen Glidus remark on this, I've seen Red Team Review remark on this, of what's going on. Oh, by the way, it's really embarrassing for me when, Red Team Review and Preston Jacobs said in one of their recent podcasts, I know everything. No, I don't. The difference is I trust but verify based on evidence instead of just making wish lists about what I want to be true. I don't have spy contacts. Third-hand, people who do have spy contacts trust me enough to share information with me, and I vet it. That they will say, they'll talk me down from a theory if I'm barking up the wrong tree. They'll say, we privately have this really big leak that disproves that, but we can't share it publicly because it would out a source. And I go, I understand we can't out our sources because we'd have one big leak now. Where are we going to get one a month from now? You can't out all of your sources, but they can privately nudge you in the right direction. I get that. So through diligent and consistent hard work these past 2 years, I've managed to get a decent amount of trust on that. But seriously, the bigger part of this is just I pay attention and I cross-reference things, because most of this is stuff they've shared publicly anyway, like Wake the Dragon, Redanian Intelligence, House of the Dragons. They share most of this in public anyway, so this isn't outing anyone. That Wake the Dragon herself has said in the past day publicly on Twitter, this is like the end of episode 1. So, okay, they say we can confirm that, and I believe them. Oh, by the way, it's the second to last scene of episode 1, is what they think. The last scene, we've known for a while, unless they change something, we think the last scene is a cliffhanger of cutting to King's Landing and seeing someone hire Blood and Cheese, and use the phrase, we're gonna get a son for a son. And that's a cliffhanger, dun dun dun. Then the actual Blood and Cheese event is the beginning of episode 2. But we've known that for a while, so I'm not surprised by that. The new info was right before that. We have this funeral scene that emphasizes why Blood and Cheese, or it's a son for a son deal, that they're really upset about, they're at his funeral. So all this implies about how much time Jace is actually going, meeting these other great houses. We thought they were expanding it. In his recent interview accompanying the teaser, Ryan Condal said in Entertainment Weekly, we are expanding out to see the other great houses more. So how do we justify that with this is the end of episode 1? Well, thinking on it, there are two options, and I'm leaning towards the second one is what they're probably doing or should be doing. The first one is that they might have a full 30 minutes on Jace meeting the Arryns and then the Starks, which takes up the bulk of episode 1. That it's like the primary storyline, that episode 1 will probably be a bit longer, nearly 70 minutes. These are already long episodes in the 65-minute region in general, and they might just spend like 30 minutes on Jace's story, doing it all in the first episode. I consider this unlikely, as while it is physically possible to do that, in terms of the pacing of the entire season as a whole, that's a bad idea. That I don't think they'd be doing that. So, are they just leaving it off screen? Are we getting fewer scenes than we thought we would? How would this work? That's why I lean towards option 2. I'm not the first person to originate this, but it's the one I believe in, and I put a lot more thought into it of just, yeah, because of this and this, of this makes more sense. Simply, Jace was in the Eyrie when Luke died. He got the news that Luke died, doubled back for the funeral, then left a second time to go to Winterfell. That way, his trip to Winterfell and staying there could last much of the season. Because we see him later at the dinner scene, which is like episode 6 or 7, but they could still have a good 4 or 5 episodes, half of an 8-episode season, in the North with Jace, if he leaves a second time. Why is this a good idea, and how is it plausible? Well, apart from getting the drama of having Jace actually react to his brother's funeral, I realize this is, and I'm not the person who said this, I actually think Voice of Old Town is the person who I specifically saw expressing this and went, yeah, you're right, that is a really good idea. So shout out to Voice of Old Town. By the way, he recently did a Q&A where he read off one of my questions I submitted about the teaser trailer. It was the first one. Go check that out. That was nice. That, for some reason, actually reads off some of my Q&A in more than one video of just trying to create the discourse here. But Voice of Old Town, and now others are saying, this is a really great way to actually have an on-screen scene of Rhaenyra telling Jace about the White Walker prophecy before he goes to meet the Starks and go to the Wall to see this firsthand. That the Starks are the only great house that if you tell them, well, there's actually the secret prophecy, the White Walkers might come back, they're the only great house that might be swayed by that because they're on the front line, because they border the Wall. They take these myths and legends, in their minds, they take it seriously because it's history to them. So the best way to prepare him for going to the North is tell him, well, there's this prophecy of doom coming from beyond the Wall. You would tell someone before they go to the Wall. And we've been discussing this in the almost 2 years since Season 1 came out. Like, are we going to get a flashback of her telling him that off-screen? That she told him before he left? And that we'll get a flashback of it or something? That it makes more sense in terms of practical TV adaptation to have him double back for the funeral, have a big scene of Rhaenyra telling Jace, I'm passing this on to you as my eldest son and heir, just as Viserys passed it on to me, and every king since Aegon the First. Then send him north. So that's actually, it's 2 birds with 1 stone. It's a solution for, did she share the prophecy with him or not? Makes a good deal of sense. What about the practicality of this? That is what worried me at first, but then I sat up and went, wait a minute. Is it impractical? Is this physically implausible? Is this comparable to, we're all thinking it, Season 7's White Hunt, and just the intellectual insult that they made that, and then they were angry at people who criticized we know behind the scenes people were pointing these inconsistencies out for months. That the audience is not the first people that brought up how silly this was, that they knew when they were filming there were problems. You don't get to be angry at us when this is a problem you anticipated before it aired. You know, like the darkness things in Season 8. You don't get to be mad at us. You knew this was a problem. The audacity, and I'm waiting for, like, interviewers, whenever there's a live interview, to actually show some integrity and talk back to them of, no, you knew this was a problem. But it's not really comparable to that, because this is a map that I made a couple of months ago for other videos, talking about dragon travel times and how much that they could do with this, that the books actually do consistently give travel times for dragons. What's a good full day's flight that a dragon can do start to finish? Like, can they cross the narrow sea in a single flight because there's nowhere to land? Yes. You hear of characters flying straight from Dragonstone to Pentos back and forth. And when you look at a map, you realize Dragonstone is actually equidistant between Pentos and King's Landing. And characters all the time are flying between Dragonstone and King's Landing. So let's say that's about one full day's flight. Comparing this to a horse, though, you can ride a horse from dawn to dusk, and that's a full day's ride. Bit harder to ride a horse from dawn to dusk 7 days straight for a full week. You know, sleep 12 hours, do that. So I imagine a character would fly a dragon for a full day, then let the dragon rest a day or two. But okay, this is roughly one full flight. But I crunched the numbers on this. I did a close read of Fire and Blood, and Martin was consistent about this, and I almost think it was this subtle take that at the TV show, because Fire and Blood was printed the year after Season 7, 2018 it came out. That, yeah, you hear about characters consistently going this in one flight. To the south, think of it like the hands on a clock. Going south now, distance from Dragonstone to Storm's End, which they didn't consider a long flight for Luke. That it was a non-stop flight that one smaller dragon can do without too much trouble, is roughly, I mean, I don't have, this isn't a modern map with, like, Google Maps, geopoints, and nav systems on it, but eyeballing it, yeah, this is roughly the same distance south of Dragonstone as King's Landing is west or Pentos is east. And then the thing was, this came up in a separate video about Rhaenyra going to Harrenhal. Is that plausible? And I went, yeah, Harrenhal is actually roughly the same distance from Dragonstone as King's Landing. Because in your head, you always think of it as west-east, but King's Landing is actually southwest of Dragonstone. Harrenhal is roughly the same distance northwest. And in Fire and Blood, you hear of characters like Rhaena, the older Rhaena, flying straight to Harrenhal and stuff. So it is entirely plausible. Beyond that, like someone flying straight to Casterly Rock or Winterfell, that's where problems come in. But if you just keep track of all the mentions, yeah, there's this roughly like the hands on a clock. This is roughly these distances. And at the top of the clock, going north, we know Jace made a direct flight to the Eyrie. And if you look at a map, the Eyrie is roughly the same distance north that Storm's End is south. This is roughly what they're treating as a full day's ride, a full day's flight. And because I think you'd actually rest for a day or two, rest your dragon, that I don't think, well, why would we assume that Jace, well, they say he didn't stay long. Why would you assume he stopped, landed, met with Jane Arryn, then got right back on his dragon after like 2 hours on the ground? That's silly. He didn't stay there long, but, you know, it's a long, like a full day's horse ride. You then take a second day to rest the horse. So I'm thinking he might have spent, even though it's not supposed to be a long time, maybe he was there for 3 days. And on the third day, yeah, I think that's enough turnaround time for a raven to come from Dragonstone. Let's say it took them a day to find out that Luke was dead. Another day for a raven to reach the Eyrie, and maybe he stayed there as much as a week. You don't know, with negotiations, with resting the dragon. Obviously they're in a hurry, but this is completely within the realms of possibility for me, that maybe he just got a raven, doubled back immediately, because it isn't that far away. Would be weird if he suddenly came back from Winterfell by the end of episode 1, because it's supposed to be a long journey, but okay, he was in the Vale first, and he got a messenger raven. I am fine with this. This is quite different, of course, from what they did in Season 7, where there are so many problems of, like, you had Daenerys fly dragons straight from Blackwater Bay to the Wall. Worse, you insisted that a messenger raven from the Wall, which is slower than a dragon, could fly all the way to Dragonstone, So it's a round trip, doubling the distance. And even if it wasn't the same Raven, it's a Raven network, so it passes it on like that. Of okay, it was a Raven from Winterfell to White Harbor, then a fresh Raven from White Harbor to the Eyrie. It's still, you've established for 7 seasons the network isn't that fast, and is now a round trip thing. And there's people trapped on this island in a frozen lake. How long does it take ice to refreeze? Or were they there for more than one day? Is itself ridiculous. Because when you have people trapped somewhere, that establishes what I call a ticking clock. That is the key difference. There isn't quite a ticking clock for Jace. That he wasn't hurrying of, I'm going to be on the ground for 2 hours at the Eyrie, then move on. He probably stayed there for 2 or 3 days, resting his dragon from the flight, negotiating with Jane Arryn. Okay, on day 3 I got a Raven. I don't want to keep coming back to that season 7 thing, but the enemy are ice demons, established to have freezing powers, yet they never freeze the lake. To get and we know from other comments Alan Taylor made, there were so many problems with this that made no sense. That even casual viewers, I mean, obviously it's overshadowed by season 8, people were really revolting against the season 7 thing. I remember people openly joking, I mean, news channels joking. A Cartoon Network had this bumper going, the writing quality on Game of Thrones has died when they saw that. So that shocked a lot of people, but this really isn't comparable to that. If it's a flight between the Eyrie and this, and I really hope that the TV show makes, like when Martin had those inside the episode things he did he only did about 15 minutes worth, but they were really good at the beginning of House of the Dragon season 1, and he whipped out a map showing this is where the Triarchy is, this is where the Stepstones are. I'd like them to show a map like the one I made, showing, if you do it like the spokes on a wheel or the hands on a clock, we have seen characters making single flights roughly this distance from Dragonstone to Storm's End to the Eyrie. This is one day's flight. I'm fine with that he was still relatively nearby. This does raise a question. I don't even know if it raises the question, will we actually see Jane Arryn in episode 1? Or will they leave her off screen to be fully introduced later in the season when Rhaena goes there? We have other leaks confirming now she's there when Rhaena meets her. And I've made videos, they're expanding that, which is great. But I realize this leak that, no, this is the end of episode 1, that doesn't really prove or disprove that one way or the other. How it doesn't imply that he never went to the Vale. It implies he was in the Vale, met Jane, then came back. I'd be annoyed if they left his meeting off screen. I don't see why they would, but this has no relation to that. It could easily be they have a long scene together. And we all know at this point, widespread leak, that Jane Arryn will be played by Raised by Wolves Amanda Collin. We're really looking forward to that. We don't know who's playing Jess Redfort yet, but there's a couple of characters we don't know. Like, we don't know all the Blackwoods who have been cast. And also, for the Starks, we have no official casting report for Sarah Snow. There's only really 2 Starks left at the beginning of the story, Cregan Stark and his bastard half-sister Sarah Snow. Though I've said there's this other cast member who we know is in the show named Erica Ford, who, based on her physical appearance, that she really looks like Maisie Williams, a lot of us suspect is Sarah Snow, but we'll have to see how they play that. They'd be fools to cut it out, because it's just this really interesting thing in Fire and Blood of, wait, what? There's this bastard half-sister who the historians didn't really write about, but then they go, well, historians don't usually cover bastards, so maybe she did exist, but it's a rumor. It's a mysterious character, we'll have to figure that out. So it is entirely plausible to me that, okay, say a messenger raven came in and he doubled back, then went to Winterfell, and this way we get to have a scene of Rhaenyra imparting the prophecy onto him, imparting the Great Commission onto him. I'm fine with this.